We're Naik and Kim. We visited Paris more than half a dozen times and we want to share with you our favorite spots in this amazing city. So here's our top 15 for Paris. Paris is one of the most magical cities in the world and we're so excited to show you around. So let's dive right in with number 15, Versailles. The Palace of Versailles, built by King Louis XIV, is one of the most luxurious royal homes ever created. It has over 2,300 rooms filled with gold decorations, huge paintings, and crystal chandeliers. The cost of building Versailles was so high that it almost bankrupted France. Today, it would have cost about $2 billion. But hey, the king needed some lavish digs to entertain the French nobles and keep them in line. One of the most famous parts of the palace is the Hall of Mirrors. It has 357 mirrors on one side and large windows on the other, which fill the room with light. The gardens outside the palace are just as impressive. They cover 800 hectares and feature 50 fountains with endless pathways and perfectly trimmed hedges in between. Versailles is located just outside of Paris and tickets cost about $20 to $30 per person. But from May to September, entry is free on the first Sunday of every month. Up next, trying traditional French cuisine. You can't come to Paris without indulging in traditional French food. It is one of the city's highlights. Let's kick off with a classic, bœuf bourguignon. This slow-cooked beef stew, simmered in red wine with mushrooms and herbs, practically melts in your mouth. It's the kind of hearty, comforting dish that France is famous for. And then there's the cheese fondue, that's Naik's personal favorite. This big, gooey pot of melted cheese served with chunks of bread for dipping. For those on a budget, Bouillon Pigalle is the perfect spot. This affordable sit-down restaurant often has lines out the door, and it's easy to see why. You can try French classics like bone marrow with toast or a steaming bowl of French onion soup packed with caramelized onions in a rich beef broth and topped with a layer of melted cheese, all without breaking the bank. And since you're on vacation, why not indulge in some of those famous French desserts? One of the must-tries is crêpe Suzette, a traditional thin pancake served in a decadent sauce of butter, sugar, orange juice, and Grand Marnier, and then it's flambéed at your table. Paris is a city of love, and you'll taste that love in every bite of French food. Next up, Montmartre, an artsy neighborhood with a bohemian charm that feels like a little village within Paris. Montmartre is perched on a hill in the north and is famous for its winding cobblestone streets, cozy cafes, and incredible views. One of the first things you'll notice is Sacré-Cœur Basilica, sitting right at the top, 130 meters or almost 500 feet above the rest of the city. The walk up is a bit of a climb, but the panoramic views you'll get are more than worth it. By the way, this hill is one of the most popular places in Paris to go for a picnic with a baguette, some French cheese and wine as the sun sets over Paris. A little further down the road, the Place du Tertre is a bustling square where artists set up their easels and paint portraits or sell their cityscapes. You can watch them at work or even get your own portrait done. It's a little touristy, but in a charming way. Famous artists like Picasso and Van Gogh lived and painted here, and it's amazing to walk the same streets where they once found their inspiration. Now, this next one might come as a big surprise: the Père Lachaise Cemetery. It might sound a bit unusual to visit a cemetery, but as the largest one in Paris, spanning over 110 acres, Père Lachaise feels more like an outdoor museum. It's filled with remarkable sculptures, grand mausoleums, and the graves of some very famous figures. Established in 1804, it's the final resting place of many iconic names, from rock legend Jim Morrison of The Doors to literary giant Oscar Wilde, beloved singer Edith Piaf, and composer Frédéric Chopin. As you stroll around, just look for the graves with lots of flowers, which is a big hint where some of the most famous residents lie. Oscar Wilde's grave is particularly striking with its modernist angel sculpture. His grave actually used to be covered in lipstick marks from fans until the authorities put a glass barrier around it. Père Lachaise is really easy to reach by metro, it's free to enter and open daily. We recommend going in the morning for a more peaceful experience, and if you want to visit the graves of its most famous residents, plan to spend at least an hour or two wandering the grounds. Now we move on to the legendary Galeries Lafayette. Even if you're not a big shopper, this place is worth a visit. Located near the iconic Opéra Garnier, Galeries Lafayette is more than just a department store. It's a Parisian institution that dates back to 1894. Known for its Art Nouveau architecture, the store's interior is an attraction all on its own, especially the stained glass dome and the balconies, which almost make it feel like a sort of cathedral of fashion. If you feel like spending your life savings on a purse, you can totally do that here. Chanel, Dior, they're all here. Or if you're just window shopping, the rooftop terrace is open to the public and offers one of the best free views of Paris with a perfect angle on the Eiffel Tower and the Sacré-Cœur. Oh, and big tip, definitely check out the food hall on the lower level. It's filled with delicious treats that make for great souvenirs like macarons, or you can pick up a freshly baked baguette and some pastries to snack on while you explore Paris. Now on to the most famous spot in Paris. Everyone knows the Eiffel Tower, but we're gonna give you some important tips that will make your visit unforgettable. The Eiffel Tower is 324 meters tall, that's over 1,000 feet, and was built by this man, Gustave Eiffel, for the 1889 World's Fair held in Paris. It was actually meant to be temporary, but it's been standing proudly for over a century now. On your way to the Eiffel Tower, make sure to first walk through the Champs de Mars. That's the name for the big park right in front of the tower where you can snap some selfies. When you get to the Eiffel Tower, we highly recommend going up. It's important to know that ticket prices vary depending on whether you're walking up, which is about $12 per person, or taking the elevator, which is about $20, and depending on which floor you're going to. The first floor has a glass section where you can look straight down and a small exhibit with information about the tower. The second floor is often recommended as the best one for the panoramic views because you can see the landmarks like the Seine, the Louvre, and Montmartre from here. And then there's the summit, where you can only get by elevator. While these tickets are a bit pricier at $25 to $30, we do really recommend it because how often in your life can you stand on top of a landmark this iconic? There's a tiny office up there that used to belong to Gustave Eiffel himself, and there's a champagne bar at the top, so you can toast to Paris with an unbeatable view. Lots of people do picnics around the Eiffel Tower around sunset as well. After dark, you get to enjoy this magical view, and there's a light show every hour on the hour until about midnight. Next up, the Louvre. The Louvre is the largest and most famous museum in the world. Originally a royal palace built in the 12th century, it is now home to over 35,000 works of art, from ancient artifacts to modern masterpieces. Two of the most famous pieces here are the Mona Lisa and the Venus of Milo. Fun fact, if you were to spend 30 seconds looking at each piece in the Louvre, it would take you over 100 days non-stop to see everything. While we don't suggest trying that, it is definitely a fantastic place to explore for a couple hours. When it comes to the Mona Lisa though, it is good to manage your expectations. If you're hoping to snap a selfie with her, and who isn't, be prepared for a queue. People are often surprised to find that the painting is quite small. It's just 30 by 21 inches. But keep in mind, this is one of the most iconic artworks in the world, and to me, it was definitely worth it. One of my favorite parts of the Louvre are the apartments of Napoleon, a section not everyone knows about. This part of the museum lets you step into the lavish lifestyle of French royalty, complete with crazy decor and over-the-top rooms. Since the Louvre is so massive, it's best to plan ahead. Grab a map and choose a few sections to focus on to avoid feeling overwhelmed. Visit early in the morning or late in the afternoon to help you dodge the crowds, and if you're on a budget, the entrance is free on the first Saturday evening of every month. Now, after we visit the Louvre, it's time to visit one of the most beautiful gardens in Paris, the Jardin des Tuileries. The best part is that it's completely free and open every day. This formal French garden stretches between the Louvre Museum and the Place de la Concorde. It is the perfect spot for soaking up the Parisian vibe. Created in the 16th century as a royal garden, it was later opened to the public and is now one of the city's most popular green spaces. To me, this is one of those places that best captures the spirit of Paris. Beautiful, romantic, and focused on enjoying life. Nearby, you'll also see the Luxor obelisk in the Place de la Concorde at the end of the Tuileries garden. The obelisk is a massive 3,300-year-old monument gifted to France by Egypt in the 19th century. Just imagine how much wrapping paper must have gone into this bad boy. Next, let's head over to the Seine River. This river runs right through the heart of Paris, and it is lined with famous landmarks including the Eiffel Tower, Notre-Dame, and the Louvre, making it the perfect sightseeing route. There are so many ways to experience the Seine. You can walk or rent one of these electric scooters. The walkways give you a close-up view of the city's beautiful architecture, and they're filled with little stalls where vendors sell everything from old books to vintage postcards and art prints. Definitely don't miss this bridge, the Pont Alexandre, with its ornate sculptures and golden statues. The most relaxed and scenic way to see Paris is definitely to take a Seine River cruise. You'll pass by some of the city's most iconic sites, and many cruises even offer dinner or sunset options, so you can enjoy a meal while you watch the city lights twinkle outside. If you're in the mood for something totally different, the Centre Pompidou is a must-see. This building is unlike anything else in Paris. It's bold, colorful, and famously inside out. Covered in vibrant pipes and tubes, each color represents a different function, from air conditioning to water. Inside, you'll find Europe's largest collection of modern and contemporary art, with pieces by icons like Picasso, Matisse, and Kandinsky. The variety here is amazing, from paintings to immersive installations, so there's something for everyone. Even if you're not a big fan of modern art, the views from the top floor are worth it alone. Grab a coffee at the rooftop cafe and soak in the panoramic view of Paris. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now, there is a very important law you need to be aware of if you're going to be visiting Paris. It is highly illegal to come to Paris and not try some of its world-famous pastries. The pastries here are as incredible as everyone says, so do yourself a favor and make a beeline for a Parisian bakery the moment you land. You can start off with a classic, a buttery croissant or a pain au chocolat, which is basically a chocolate-filled dream. You'll find some of the best croissants at Bon et Mi, but get there early in the day before they run out. And definitely try the eclairs, pastries filled with rich, creamy goodness and topped with smooth chocolate. And of course, no French pastry tour is complete without macarons. For the classics, you have to go to La Durée. Their rose and pistachio flavors are timeless, with some seasonal surprises to keep things interesting. But if you want to get a bit adventurous, try Père Hermé. His macarons come in creative flavors like passion fruit with chocolate or rose with lychee. If you're heading to Paris, Notre-Dame Cathedral is officially back on the must-visit list. After being closed for years since a devastating fire in 2019, Notre-Dame is finally reopening December of 2024. A rare chance to see this iconic landmark brought back to life. When you get there, you'll immediately notice how massive it is, standing 69 meters or 226 feet tall with that Gothic architecture that's covered in incredible detail. The two towers alone have over 400 statues, and the whole facade is full of carvings that tell biblical stories. And those famous gargoyles you see on the outside, they're not just for decoration. Back in the day, they were actually used as rain spouts to channel water away from the cathedral walls. Inside, you'll see the legendary rose windows, especially the North Rose, which has over 80 individual panels of stained glass, each one a work of art telling its own story. And don't miss the chance to climb the towers. It's a bit of a workout as there are almost 400 steps, but the view from the top is unforgettable. Now, we're switching things up and heading to one of Paris's most iconic streets, the Champs-Élysées. Known as the most beautiful avenue in the world, it stretches out 2 kilometers from the Place de la Concorde to the Arc de Triomphe. The Champs-Élysées is lined with luxury shops, theaters, and cafes. It's a lively spot for people watching, window shopping, or just soaking up the Parisian atmosphere. At the top of the Champs-Élysées stands the Arc de Triomphe, a monument honoring those who fought and died for France during the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. You can actually go up to the top, where there's a panoramic terrace offering incredible views of Paris. To get the best view, consider visiting around sunset. The way the lights of the Champs-Élysées start to glow as the sky darkens is something you won't forget. And then the Panthéon. Originally built as a church, the Panthéon is now a hall of fame dedicated to France's greatest minds like Voltaire, Rousseau, Victor Hugo, and Marie Curie. The architecture is stunning, with towering columns and incredible frescoes depicting key moments in the history of France. Inside, this big space feels almost like a cathedral. The walls are covered in beautiful murals, and there's a massive dome overhead. Moving slowly beneath that dome is Foucault's pendulum. This 67-meter-long pendulum that is 220 feet was set up in 1851 to demonstrate the rotation of the Earth. It was quite revolutionary at the time when people still believed the sun and the planets revolved around the Earth. If you're a book lover, definitely visit Shakespeare and Company, which is only a short walk from the Panthéon. This legendary bookstore that actually also sells English books was once a haven for writers like Hemingway and Joyce. Today, it's a charming, slightly chaotic space filled with big shelves, narrow staircases, and cozy corners for reading. And if you're into fashion, don't miss La Galerie Dior. This is a museum dedicated to the iconic fashion house of Christian Dior, located right next to the Dior flagship store. La Galerie Dior is filled with Dior's most famous creations, from classic evening gowns to more modern pieces, all showcased with incredible attention to detail. The museum walks you through the history of Dior, with displays of original sketches, couture pieces, and the famous bar suit from 1947, which redefined women's fashion. Now, one of the biggest things you'll have to figure out in Paris is what you're going to be eating every day. We have a video with the top 10 foods that you cannot miss if you're visiting Paris, so click here, go and watch that, and we'll see you next time.